1, and we are live.
Live.
And I am fired up. It is Friday.
It is.
It is. And I'm here with my man Wayne in studioUSA. So,
Morning.
dude, you already blown my mind before we ever even like our pre-show stuff. Now, I think we actually recorded some of it. So
There you go.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll kind of like sprinkle that on there too. So now we are guest free today
Yes.
because I'm dying to dive further into Leadership Laboratory, which is
Yes.
underway, and the logo should be done by
Oh my
the
gosh,
end of the
I can't
weekend.
wait. I love the logo. You did
And
so good with
thank
that.
you, thank you.
So
and
good.
I'm of the mind you're not legit until you have a logo and a T-shirt.
Absolutely. Yes.
So
yes.
we are on our way to legitimacy.
Yes.
But lay for me, like while I do my
Boom.
my magic meds here. Yeah, while I do my brain blast, give me a hit of what's next, or what is the foundational layer for Leadership Laboratory.
Man, the foundational layer for Leadership Laboratory is there's so many people that want to be great leaders, or they start teams, whatever it is, and yet nobody's really taught them like a lot of the key leadership stuff. You know what I mean? So it's like they start hiring, they start doing stuff, but nobody really taught them like, how do you delegate well? Like what is that? What's the actual structure for that? You know what I mean? Like how do you hold people accountable in a healthy way? How do you like all these different things? And so I think with Leadership Laboratory, it's going to be cool for us to kind of break down some really practical things. Like we'll do some cool interviews and stuff like that, but also break down some really practical things for people. Like here's the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Here's things to watch out for. Here's how to handle this situation. Like just really kind of get in the weeds on like if you're a leader and you're leading, whether it's a real estate team or construction crew, whatever it is, like you need some of this stuff. Because I think a lot of us, like we see people that like they're successful in their own right. It's like going to somebody who's like they sold 200 houses and you're like, cool, you must be a leader. And it's like,
Not
there
so
might
much.
be a different, you know what I mean? Like I probably can be, but it took me years to get great at being great at sales, and then overnight we expect that person to be great at leadership, and it's a totally different skill set. And man, I see so many people that like crash and burn or mess other people up. There's all this carnage because nobody really taught them how to do this well, and they just think that they just should intuitively know how to be a great leader.
And to that, so historically, I'd been in sales my whole entire life. And there was always this thing where I had seen it so many times in so many different places where the guy that is the killer salesman, the rainmaker,
Yes.
the
Yes.
diva, then you either have one or two things where they put him into like a sales manager position because they
Yes.
say like, oh, dude, teach all 25 people how to do it like you do it. And then it just crashes and burns.
Almost every single time.
Yeah. Or the flip side of that was always, okay, this guy's the rainmaker.
Right.
Don't ever change anything that he does. And it's like, don't trust him with shit. Don't give him a key. And if he, if he wants to fax in documents from the moon.
That may be the better of the two scenarios, by the way. But yes, yeah, I see that too.
Well,
yeah.
and so having seen both of those, and I'm not sure, is there a happy medium in there? Because like you said, there's no pamphlet, there's no brochure.
No.
Just like now with running a business, and hey, shout out to Lance on his way back from Hawaii.
Woo.
We got a big
Yeah,
thing
he sent me a
happening.
picture yesterday, and I was like, jerk. Like, really?
Right.
Like, you could have just said, like, yes, I'll be there. You know what I mean? But he's like, selfie, and I'm like, that's the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Dude.
And it wasn't not Lance. I mean, Lance is, beautiful in his own right, but the view behind him was
Right.
what I'm referring to, just to be.
Same. So he sends me this footage from the balcony.
Oh, my gosh.
And he goes, hey, man, do you think I could like be a video guy? And I was like, dude, that's so good it looks fake.
Yeah, yeah.
That looks like somebody's imagined version
Yes.
of a vacation on the beach, because it's like and he
Just
does,
amazing.
yeah. And it's like, bro. And I said, okay, FOMO. However, I will freely admit that whatever it is, 6 or 8 hours to get to Hawaii,
Yeah.
not really interested in that.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier about the Orlando
Yes.
thing last year, which was cool. And I mean, it was great. But the travel was like one of those things where, oh yeah, I forgot how much I didn't really care too much for this.
Yeah.
And then once I get there, it's like, oh, I'm glad I did this.
Yeah.
And then on the way back, I'm like, oh, I don't ever want to do this
yes,
again.
yes.
And then like 3 weeks later, you're like, oh, I'm glad I did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I have this thing where there's a lot of stuff that I do it because I'm going to be glad later.
Absolutely, yes.
that I did
I was booking a trip last night, so I'm going up in September. I'm speaking at a conference, the state convention actually in Alaska, which would be cool. So I'm speaking at that. And then a couple days later, so I'll go to Alaska and spend a little while there, and then I go to New York for I'm doing an event in New York, our broker boardroom, which is going to be amazing, September 24th, and then the next day we have 30 under 30 in New York, which is going to be amazing. But so anyway, I'm booking my flight though, so I go from Alaska to Dallas to New York. And I'm just like, that. It always feels weird when your layover is home. You know what I mean? You're like so close to my home bed, and I'm out of here.
Yeah, you could wave.
Just wave. Yes.
So okay, so I'm curious again. But I will play the idiot Texan, often. But the state convention for Alaska.
Yep.
What is the body of realtors like? So what are we talking there?
How many?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I'm curious just because
I should have asked Devin when she was here because she would know that number. It's not huge. I don't know what it is.
Because it's like I associate that with probably the way a lot of folks associate Texas, where it's just wide open and nothing, but with snow.
Yeah, pretty much. No, it's amazing. It's gonna be great.
What I always see your stuff when you're up there, and it's like it does. Again, it's one of those things where oh man, that would be cool for
It's so beautiful.
48 hours.
Yes, exactly. That's all you need.
I'm also a child of the summer.
Yes.
Where it's like, dude, 50-degree weather, I'm out. So I can't do Seattle. I couldn't do Seattle.
You would die.
No, I couldn't do any. And it's like I remember being in New York one time, and it wasn't even snow, and it was maybe the fall, but it was cold.
Yes.
And it was like I didn't realize. Oh, you turn a corner on a certain street, and the wind from the ocean, it just cuts right through you, and it's
man.
I'm like,
here's what I miss. I miss being in Alaska in the winter, -10. Showing back in the foreclosure days. So it's -10. You get out of your. I would get out of my my whatever 4x4 whatever
Caterpillar.
And exactly. And go to the back and you grab a shovel, and you put your boots on, and you grab a couple of flashlights because there's no power on, right? So for your buyers, they're gonna need they're gonna need a couple of flashlights. So then you shove. I remember, looking back, I'm like, what was I doing? Half the time I would wear long-legged underwear underneath my suit just to not freeze to death instantly, right? -10, pitch black. You have to shovel a path to get to the house, and then you hand everybody it's pitch black, right? So everybody's got their flashlight, and it's like a horror movie every single time.
That both enthralls me and terrifies me.
And then they're like, we don't really like it. Let's go look at 10 more. And I'm like, no, let's not. Let's not look at 10 more. I think this is the one.
So, and it's pretty much winter there most of the...
It depends who you are. I mean, when it gets 60 degrees, my kids are laying out by the lake. So it's a little
yeah,
weird,
I can see if you were of that world where that's
it's winter
different.
way too long.
Yeah. Holy man. Oh, dude. Okay, so that's crazy. And so you've got the New York. So did you say 30 under 30? Like the NAR 30 under 30?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So we do a self-organized reunion mastermind, whatever it is, once a year. And this year, the guys in New York are carrying the torch, and we're doing it there. So that'll be really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that because it's and then we had Broker Boardroom the day before. And what's so interesting especially about Broker Boardroom, a lot of the questions I get is what's happening all over the country, what's working, what's not working, all this stuff. So I basically get together with 20 people, and we do Broker Boardroom, and it's okay, what is working in Wyoming, what's working in Alaska, what's working in New York, right? And we share all that stuff, and then we do some hot seat sessions. And
so when you say hot seat, what do you mean? Do you is it one of those things where you're at summer camp or whatever? Tell us your darkest secret.
You just share your testimonial, and then so here's what a hot seat is. So a hot seat is where you get one person who basically goes, hey, I've got a significant challenge, and they basically come up and get in the hot seat, and then it's you and I on bar stools or whatever it is, and I ask you several questions to get really clear on where you're struggling or where your stuck point is, and then basically I facilitate a conversation where 10 or 15 people, 20 people, whatever it is, that are brilliant are gonna ask you a question or give you a suggestion or whatever it is. It's so cool, and they're like, have you tried this? And well, I did this, and here's a book I read, and here's a thing I did, here's a person you should connect with, whatever it is. It's so freaking brilliant, and you walk away as if you just had 100 conversations in 15 minutes.
Nutrient dense.
Yes, it's so good. And there's so many people that walk away and they go, the insight that I got from that room literally changes the trajectory of their business. I mean, people have retired 16 months later because of what they got in that room.
Wow.
And it's an incredible experience.
And so now is this, because I'm always fascinated by how I think something is going to be and then how it actually is. So now, are these people ostensibly in competition with each other, and they open up, or
So the cool thing about it is they're from all over the place, right?
okay,
So like very
okay,
rarely
so there's
is
not
it
like two KW franchises across the
yeah.
street.
No, and even if that was the case, I mean, there's enough business for us all. You know, but
agreed.
rarely is that the case. So usually it's people from all over the country doing, but they're all doing big things, right? The qualification to get in the room is you got to be doing big stuff, right? But it's also you have to be like hungry, humble, and smart. So you have to be like driven, but you got to have humility. You got to humble, and humble doesn't mean like low confidence or low
Right-sized.
self-esteem. It can just be like I know that I don't know everything, and I'm excited to be here and to give and to learn as much as I can. So the humble piece is huge for us. We don't want any assholes in the room or anybody else. And then smart, like emotionally intelligent. So that's kind of the qualification.
Dude,
to
that's
get in there.
badass.
Yeah.
And so I'm always fascinated too about like I said, there's how I think it's going to be, and then there's how it actually is. And so even like we were talking about Orlando or whatever, and I'm in an Airbnb with like these just heavy hitter, like, Hall of Fame, knocking it out, going yard all day long. And the way that it was, now there was too the geographic disparity. So it wasn't like, oh, here's all these dogs all from the same block thrown into a thing. But just the fact that, because I was, raised in a very, like a blue collar work ethic. So like the work ethic is off the chain.
Right.
But there was that sort of thing of being suspicious of successful people.
Yeah.
Where it's like, can you really get rich and or wealthy and or like stupid, like retire in 16 months, fair and square.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the idea that if you actually had, like it would be like Colonel, you're old enough to remember Colonel Sanders in the KFC back when it was actually fried chicken. But he had his 11 herbs and spices that were like the secret, the gimmick.
Yes.
It's like, well, the idea that you would ever go anywhere and bring your list of 11 herbs and spices,
that would be crazy.
let alone hand it out.
Yes.
Oh, you guys like chicken? Have you tried?
Yeah.
But the fascinating thing for me is the more that I do that, the more the humility comes in, and the more that everything seems to open up. And again, I don't know if, I often wonder, like, because I don't really have a plan per se, other than I want to stay in business. That's sort of like that's the overarching philosophy. It's like, hey, let's not have to go get an actual job.
Yes.
Could we never go back to a cubicle?
Never. No. We do this because we're unemployable. Let's be honest. Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I didn't
It's
realize
all,
that until I was
where are we going to
unemployed.
go? You know what I mean? Like, I get very few job offers. People look at me and they're like, "You're probably amazing," and I don't know what I would. I don't know what I don't know what I would do with you.
It's like you're not meant for this kennel, and so, but I didn't know that until I was thrown. So like my origin story with how all of this started was, okay, so it's like I've actually been sober for almost 20 years. And so this was probably 12 years ago. I'm affiliate chairman at Metrotex, and I'm actually still a mortgage guy.
Yeah.
And I have a deal, worked out where it's like I'm biz dev or whatever, blah, blah. And I'm co-host an event at Frontiers of Flight Museum. The auditorium, there's like 300 people or whatever. And won't say any names or whatever, but somebody very much in control of the trajectory of my mortgage career was out on the concourse, went to lunch offsite, didn't grab one of the, Jimmy John's boxed lunch gimmicks or whatever, got hammered drunk, like shitty drunk. And I come out to the concourse to it looked like a bunch of hobos had invaded the table. It is on the, your gimmick table or whatever.
Yes.
And then it just so happened that one of my previous associates had a SUV exactly like said intoxicated person, and said intoxicated person was trying to get into my man's SUV. And it's like, this is so unbelievably embarrassing and ridiculous that I can't even wrap my head around it. And they threw me under the bus to HR before I could like explain. So it was like, I was gonzo. I've never been fired for anything I actually did.
I probably should have been fired, but what I was fired for wasn't the thing that I should.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
like
that's actually good. Yeah, it's pretty. There's a lot of truth to that.
And like there, it was. So I would love to say, oh yeah, I just took the leap of faith or whatever, but I was forced under duress.
Yeah.
And then I realized, well, I hated that world.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that I hated the specifics of the job, but there were a lot of things that just weren't appealing on the side, because this also was on the tail end of the financial crisis and all of that stuff. And it was just like this crazy thing where days and days and days, actually probably for several years, it was just a crisis helpline.
Yeah.
You know, people
Yeah.
underwater, people just upside down, and then watching I don't know how familiar anybody would be with what the government was doing to bail the banks out.
Yeah.
But being behind the curtain on that was
Yeah,
just like,
just
whoa,
ugly.
this
Yeah.
is gross, man.
it was.
This is jacked.
Yep.
And, you know, people call in and they for all intents and purposes, had done the right thing, and they're just getting steamrolled. And it was like, that was difficult to like digest
It was, yeah.
and leave at the end of the day, and go back tomorrow as if yesterday didn't happen.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And we would just put files in the wood chipper, and,
Yeah.
and some
Yeah.
of them shoot out the other end as a
Yeah.
closed mortgage,
It's
and
crazy.
some would just fall off, and it was just this insanity. And I look back, and it's like, wow, how that was a business model, I'll never know. And it was just like your government dollars in action. But I got fired, and I've never had a job since.
Yeah.
And everything was just like this crazy suit up and show up. You know, we were talking before about, you know, going and doing something because later on I'll be glad I've done this.
Yeah.
But like right now, this is kind of a beatdown.
Absolutely.
And it's just been more of that. And then now to be like this, I love because I
Yes.
get somebody like you that actually has the 5,000 or 30,000 foot view where I can get ostensibly free advice.
Yeah,
And-
absolutely. Yeah, welcome to the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If we ask you to be on the show, it's because we want to know what you know.
Oh my God,
that
yes.
is it. Agreed. Like
Yes.
that's 100%, 100%.
10,000%.
Yes.
It's like we bring people in, and you know, at the beginning, this was only done for my own personal entertainment and edification, and really to get the guys trained on
Yeah.
the stuff.
Yeah.
Where me as the on-camera guy or whatever, where the bar is so low
Yeah.
for what the quality I need, that okay, well we can, because the first time we went for half an hour without
Yeah.
sound.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Before
Yeah.
you came along.
Yeah. It was great.
And then it was like, okay, just re-rack. We're gonna do that again, and let's pretend like everything I just said
There we go.
never happened. You know.
Let me ask you this. So you talk about the vision, like where do you want to go? Like I didn't know where I was going to go. How important do you think that it is to have a vision? Like where do you want to take your company, your business? Like how important do you think it is to have that vision?
It's funny that I get into these, I don't know if it's semantics so much as the idea of chicken or egg, where, you know, you hear, again, I freely admit I have hustle porn rolling 24/7.
Yes,
you
amen.
know?
Yeah.
And-
I have like 3 apps that curate just motivational videos. Like hit me.
Yeah, exactly, because I like that. You know, and it's like I was raised in the 80s where it's like, you know, we're going to rip our shirts off
Yes.
and shoot everybody and blow everything up or whatever. So it's like I have that kind of like probably somewhat misgiven or whatever,
Sure.
jingoistic,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, American badass kind of thing mentality. But it's like I love it. And it's like, there again, chicken or egg. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
But it's like I like seeing Arnold or Sylvester Stallone, you know, blow up the bad guy.
Right.
So I have that thing where the drive and all of that is there. So I would say this. I would say it's part luck. I'm not sure what the raw numbers are, the percentages. There's a part luck. There's a part talent. And then there's a part of just the grit.
Yeah.
Where if you find something that you kind of like, that it literally is. And like I sit back now and like the guys that work from in their 20s or whatever, I'm like, oh my God, the world is so soft. It's like, you know, I grew up in an age where you were bullied relentless. It was
Yes.
just merciless. Every day
Yeah.
was a new fresh hell.
Yeah, amen,
You know?
amen, yeah.
And it's like I look at the world now and it's like, now, again, I might be totally conditioned in today's world if I was young and I would just be over in the corner curled up needing meds or something. But, you know, I look at it where if you just start
Yeah.
and go in a direction,
Yeah.
you will figure out what you're good at and what you like doing.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I think there's a lot of people like we hear it all the time, especially, you know, back in the day when I was at another company. It was so big to have your big why and things, and I literally teach a whole course on your big why. So I think it's important, and I don't necessarily think you can sit down at 22 years old and go, here's exactly where I want to go. I think very few people can have like that because they haven't experienced it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So then here's what I think is a little painful. Then they go, okay, so that's what I want. And then they start going after it. And one of the beautiful things that my coach taught me years ago was like permission to pivot. So they get so laser focused on this. And then when it's not what they thought it was going to be, they don't give themselves permission to pivot based on new information. Like, well, that's what I said I was going to do. So I have to never quit. And it's like, I love the work ethic side of that, and at the same time, if you decide something's not working, if you decide you're doing a marketing thing that's not bringing you back any return, you should probably stop or pivot. And I see this all the time, especially with me, with me at EXP. One of the things I see is so many people that are like attached to like their own brokerage or whatever. Like I started my own brokerage, and it's Dale's brokerage, whatever it is, and like they realize that it's different than they thought it was going to be. They're not actually making any money. They're not actually able to give their team members all the support they want. They're not actually able to give them wealth building opportunities. But then they're so attached, like, no, I said I was going to do this and it was going to be this, that they're unable to see all the other opportunities to get ultimately what they want in a much better vehicle. And I look at so many people that are in that, and it's like, for me, it's like I was in this nice tugboat, but then a 40-foot yacht pulled up next to it. And it's like, let's do that. You know what I mean, right? But you have to be open to that. So it's like committed and open, which is kind of this weird thing to do.
I love that, and I will often refer back, or I'll fall back just subconsciously and then top of mind to the world of recovery, where it's like anybody that is either physically addicted to something or is a maintenance drinker, or if you have a handle on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the human animal has a sense of, oh, this sucks, or I probably shouldn't be doing this, yet I can't seem to stop. So if you've got that, but then you have that never say die, I'm going on to the bitter end, it's like, perhaps you should put your rifle down and come to the winning side.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is no shame in that other than what your ego puts on you.
Yep.
Because that was the thing, the hubris and the ego and all the things that would kind of tie.
Like, why am I staying in this? Am I staying in this because I know it's the best vehicle to get where I'm going to go? Or am I staying in this because I don't want to look bad? Or am I staying in this because, like, what is actually those reasons?
Well, then you could even go like a next level up. 3D chess would be, is that person even self-aware enough to know that that's a possible thing to think?
Yes.
Because that's the other thing, because it's like they might have that animal instinct of like, oh, this isn't good.
Right.
Or even if it's just the, I'm working for the weekend, or fill in the blank, like whatever the cliche, thank God it's Friday or whatever. It's like, perhaps instead of posting that on social media, you might ought to want to look into what are you doing Monday through Friday.
And dude, it's so much about the self-awareness piece. And I think that's the power of coaching, is like, coaching is like, hey, once a month or once a week, whatever we're doing, like we pause for a second and ask some of those questions, right? Because it was interesting that I was talking to one of my clients, and he's an incredible agent and one of the top in his entire state, all the stuff, right? And yet he's like, hey, when I get this person on board and this person on board, he's like, then basically, things are going to settle down. I'm going to be able to spend more time with my family, whatever it is. And in a nice way, I basically called him out and was like, it's been like 20 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
right? Like, what actually needs to change, right? It's like it's how you're approaching life and business that is. But it hasn't been done. Like, oh, if I just do this one deal, if I get one more person hired, it's like, no, we got to go back. We got to figure out what's caused. This is going to keep repeating no matter what. No matter, you can hire 78 people and you're still going to work every Sunday unless we figure out what's actually going on upstairs.
Yes, and then I love the idea of for the most part, we all have this sort of inner monologue that is, and it's been my experience that it's learned behavior. It's somebody else's voice. It is not me just in and of myself. So a big part of that was like, well, who the hell is that? Like, where did that come from? And there's part of it that I love, because it's like I work 7 days a week. Now, I would also freely admit that I'm not digging ditches. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not tarring roofs in 113-degree weather.
Yes.
So if I was doing that.
Well, and you're doing it by choice. And I think that's the difference. Like, am I doing this by choice? Am I doing this because I think it's what I have to do, right? And I think that's a big part of it.
Well, this dovetails back into what you were saying about like what is the goal, or what is the what is the big big payoff or whatever. And I've always been guilty of that. Well, if X, then Y ... happy,
right,
or whatever. Like some sort of. And the other thing is, it's the moving goalpost.
Dude,
this formula changes.
This quote will mess you up. You've already done things, you've already achieved things that you said would make you happy. You've already achieved things that you said would make you happy.
100%.
Like, that's huge.
Dude, I walk into this place and, and I'm just like, holy shit, this is like my thing. You know what I mean? It's like, if you could have shown 15-year-old me, it's like, this is where you'll go, to work.
Right.
Yeah. And be like, okay, sign me up. Like, okay, I got to swim through like a river of shit or whatever to get there. I'm in.
Yeah.
But we get, there's the, what is it? The hedonic treadmill or the hedonic adaptation where it's like, well, this is good, but not good enough, but like 6 months ago or 6 years ago, it would have been the Taj Mahal.
Would have been amazing.
Yeah. It would have been revelatory.
But don't you think that's all about just like being present again and like giving gratitude for me, it's like giving gratitude for how far I've come.
Yes.
And I can be excited about where we're going to go. Right. So
Yes.
it's like instead of like complacent or like never happy, it's like this third place of like, I can be grateful for where I am and thrilled about where I'm going, but I can be grateful in this moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, that is learned behavior.
Yes.
And that's where coaching would come in and getting folks to actually realize what you said. Like, there was a point in time where you would have been just blown away at the opportunity to be where you are now.
Yes.
Not that you were here, but the opportunity to get there.
Yes.
And what happened?
Yeah.
Just like you were saying, it's been 20 years. So what makes you think that mystic formula of happenings that is going to fix you?
Right.
And the other thing that I have come to learn is, there never is a finish line.
No.
And so like now, I am fired up for what's next up in what we were talking about beforehand in like Leadership Lab, because it's like there is something about, and again, back to the recovery, you can't keep it unless you give it away.
Right.
And I also find that giving it away counterintuitively is a force multiplier.
Absolutely.
Where it's like, oh shit, if I give everybody the herbs and spices, it doesn't, my sales of chicken don't decrease.
Absolutely. Yes.
But that's not.
I'm seeing if any questions came in. Keep going.
So that wasn't ever anything that I was taught.
Yeah.
I was always taught, and it's like, not to get woo woo or whatever, but like the idea of the abundance, where you said earlier, there's enough, even if we had a competing studio across the street, there's enough to go around. We're not
100%.
We're not going to run out.
No.
And the fact that if you we were talking about the sphere rocket guy earlier, where and I said the thing like, dude, that sometimes there's the right place, right time, and all the stars align, and then it's like, boom, this exponential explosion, and it's like, yet that didn't reduce anybody else's pie.
Correct.
It was like he got this pie that didn't previously exist, and now it's
beautiful blue ocean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, bingo. Yeah. And it's like I always hear that, and it's like, what? So there's blue ocean and red ocean, right?
I don't know what the red ocean is.
Okay, I assume it's the opposite of blue.
I think it's everyone that died by not going to the blue ocean. Maybe there you go. The red ocean is all the people that didn't make it out of there.
Maybe it's just chum. It's just filled with sharks. Did you actually get
yeah, we had some questions. You want to answer a couple?
Yes.
Okay, Bree, shout out. She is amazing. So first question was, and she's got a couple. Answer at least one or two of them. So question number 3 was best coaching certifications and books. That is Wayne's certification. So Hero Nation Coaches Training, which is happening next month. So connect with me on that. 2 days, amazing. I only let 8 people do it at a time. It's incredible. So it's for people that want to be coaches and people that want to be better leaders. I teach them how to be phenomenal coaches and how to lead their people. So that's the answer for that. First question, how do you quiet the distractions in your mind?
I would say first off, this ties back into what you were saying a little bit ago, where the guy comes to you with the preconceived notion of if this, then this, then ... happily ever after. It's like, first off, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And what historical evidence do you have to show that if all of those things were indeed to happen magically right now? Yeah. What historical evidence do you have to show that has ever happened?
Yeah.
And then why would that make you think that is ever going to happen?
Yes.
It's that sort of self-examination thing.
Yes.
And then the distractions are, why am I distracting because it's, again, this presupposes that we're not just totally sleepwalking goofballs. You know what I mean? We have an IQ over 83, right. and we could kind of, suss a few things out. But the idea of, I know if there's stuff, and I can't remember how you said it, but it's like, what are the things, what are the things that you should be doing that you're not doing that
yes.
you should be doing? Because then it becomes let's look at that, because that's the wellspring for where the distractions come from.
100%.
And the idea of it's okay. That's the other thing where you're saying like permission to pivot.
Yeah.
I also find a lot of times people want permission to either be like, this sucks, I don't want to do it, so I'm going to go dick around on Instagram or TikTok for 3 hours. Okay, how about you give yourself permission to dick around on TikTok for 3 hours and then you go do it?
Yes.
Because then it's like you're leaning into the fact that I do these things that are counterproductive. Yeah. Odds are, and then you actually have the humility to say, odds are I'm probably not going to stop.
Yes.
So like, how about we actually treat the thing and then not act like, oh, well, if I eat this one meal, I'll never be hungry again. Because a lot of people have that mindset where it's like, oh, if I get this, then whatever that thing is, that need, that hunger, that drive or whatever, we file that away. That was a past tense. Yep. And so, like, for you, what do you tell the folks as far as the distractions go?
And I think it depends where it's showing up. So I think the first thing is we usually blame everything around us, especially if somebody works in an office. They blame everybody around them. And what I start with is, like, where are you self-distracting? So, like what can you, before we worry about all the stuff that's hard to control, let's worry about what you can control. And so it's like turn the dings off and the blings and the numbers and the alerts and all that kind of, let's get rid of that first. But recognizing we've self-induced ADD, right? Because of all the stuff we have, like we've become ADD because of the environments we put ourselves in. So how do I change the environment? Another thing that I've done is I've given myself permission to take breaks. But when I take a break, I go sit in a chair or I go sit on the couch or whatever it is without my phone. So I can take breaks. I don't do I'm working to train myself to not do distraction breaks, which is just messing my head up even more. So if I need a 5-minute break, if I'm like, man, I really don't want to do this, I need a break, I give myself permission to just go sit and breathe and chill out for a couple minutes, whatever it is. Yet I'm not doing numbing, more distracting stuff in that time. Right. So that's been huge for me.
Well, and if you do it that way, you're not doing anything because, depending on what platform you're using as a distraction, they're either going to suck you in to spin you up on, oh, I like kittens. So TikTok's going to feed you kitten videos or whatever. So ostensibly that's like, oh, that's a nice positive thing or whatever. But things like Twitter, it's like, oh, you hate this? Wait till you see this. You know, then you get spun up into this like,
Well, go watch Social Dilemma. Did you ever watch that?
Yes.
Yeah. And the greatest thing about that movie, Social Dilemma, was it pissed me off how much I've been and I don't really like using that word, but how much I've been a victim of
willing participant.
A willing participant in all the distractions that they feed me and how good they are at stealing my attention. And it came to a place where it's like, screw you. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not paying you anymore because my attention is really valuable. Right. So like, that's a huge thing. And the second thing is like getting my clients to go, what do you want to focus on for the next 30 days or 60 days? So instead of like, kind of go back to the hustle porn thing, like instead of bombarding your mind with 1,000 different podcasts or books where it's like, what's the one thing you really want to get good at in the next 30 days? And let's focus in on that. Let's read 3 books on that. Let's listen to podcasts let's focus in on 1 or 2 skills at a time instead of just having a ton of stuff coming in your brain, which can mess you up.
Absolutely. And there is, in today's world at least, I have been guilty of what you said before. Until it's like you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And then after you realize like, oh shit, I've been drawn off sides constantly by these things that I think that I'm actually controlling. Yep. And then it becomes like, oh wait, I don't like that. Yep. And so then once I realized and I became mindful of, first off, that I would do that. So like, okay, let's not do that as often as possible. And then the other thing was I still need distractions.
Yeah.
And so then it was, because I always used to try to be like so high-minded or whatever, but the truth is, I like dumb shit like pro wrestling, and I like movies where giant monsters get punched by robots. So it's like that's what those things exist for. Use them in their proper context.
Yeah. No, I was just seeing if there's no, it's good.
And so I love that. And then it's a matter of not only just focus, but once I started to do that and actually, because I know you're a big fan of the tracking of the, not even achievements, but a tracking of like work done.
Yes.
Because my thing is evidence breeds confidence.
Yeah.
And so like I'll use my man Cruz. Like his first month or whatever, 3 years ago, like he didn't have shit for a background or whatever. But now that he's shot probably 1,700 houses and, hundreds of hours on video, it's like, I can say like, dude, you're really good. But that would have a little bit of cachet, but nothing to the the effect of having 3 years worth of doing it every day.
1,000%. Yes.
And how do you get people into that mindset?
Man, it's the mindset of like, how do I get as many at bats as I can as fast as I can. Right, you know what I mean. So people look at me and they go, "Oh, you're really good at on stage or whatever it is." Right, and I'm like, yeah, I got my teeth kicked in for 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, I remember one of the big engagements I was going to speak in. I remember sitting in my rental car in the parking lot in the middle of Kansas somewhere, right, where they got 100 people together, which was a miracle. Right,
that was all of Kansas.
That was the entire town. And I can make fun of Kansas because I was born in Kansas.
So was I. Fort Riley, Kansas.
Dodge City. I got out of Dodge.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, around the corner from Boot Hill. Crazy. But I remember sitting in my car going, "Dear God, please make me a bird so I can fly far, far away." Right? Like I remember like these thoughts go through my mind, like, how do I just like maybe if the rapture's coming, now is good. Like I'm like take me. You know what I mean? Like let's do it. Aliens, God, like whatever, just something tornadoes,
Yeah.
they come through. But you just got to put in the reps. So like I told you the other day, I'm going to Tennessee next week to speak to a bunch of people that have bought a franchise. And so many people are going like, man, it's hard to make calls. I don't know what to do. I don't like all this different stuff. And it's like the first 100, the first 200 are just practice.
Right.
So you can either so say you own one of these franchises. It can either take you a year of making 1 or 2 calls a day, or you go, hey, I'm getting these calls done the next 30 days. I'm getting 150 calls done in the next 2 weeks to just get good. Like you can't get good day one. I don't care how many books you read on how to ride a bike, right? You've got to at some point go get on the bike.
Yes.
And people like you just got to embrace it. And as kids, like treat it as if you were a kid, right? When you were a kid when you almost were learning anything, you fell off. You're like, oh, that's right. Skateboard, whatever it was, like, oh, that sucked, right? You laughed and you got back up. You knew it's just part of the process.
Everybody sucks when they start.
Man, as adults, we like make one call, we're like, oh, that wasn't the best call that I've ever heard in my entire life. Because it was call number 3, I give up. Right? It's like, call me after 200.
Yeah. Or the idea of the sort of misbegotten idea of, or misplaced idea of, well, I'm not automatically awesome out of the gate, therefore this isn't for me.
100%. Yep. Total BS.
Yep.
All right, last question.
Okay.
So Bree also asked branding. So I want to know, she said branding strategy. So my question for you is, how are you helping people brand? So let's say agent, comes in day one. They want to like craft their brand. What would you do with that person to help them craft their brand? What are some of the elements of that you do? If you had one day with them, what would you want to walk? By the way, you should probably do this. You should probably just charge people $8,000 to come in and spend 4 hours with you and walk away with a brand, because you could do that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the most edifying and gratifying parts of the whole thing is when somebody comes in and they want to,
Yeah.
and they kind of know that they should.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes like, okay, well, how do we get past that and actually make it real?
Yeah.
And then they participate. And so like my overarching and underlying philosophy is I want what's on the label to match what's in the can. So that is like personality extraction.
Right, yes.
Where it's like, okay, you come in and you say, oh, I'm scared of the camera or whatever. And it's like, yeah, join the club.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, the reps. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, the first time on camera, you're probably going to be shitty. I told this gal last night, we're shooting like a $2 million gigantic property, stocked pond with air. I mean, it had like, and it was able to go off the grid. It had its own power, whatever. But she looked like $1 million, and she's like, okay, I don't really want to be on. And it's like, yeah, duh. And then after we were about 30 minutes in, she's like getting in the groove, and then she's like adding stuff in. And so it's like I have a very specific approach to all of that. But I told her as we were leaving, I was like, you totally rocked it. And I said, truth is, whenever I show up, I never know if somebody's going to be good. Right. So in order to hedge and not lose my mind, I got to assume that you kind of suck.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so we take it from there.
Yeah.
And then the ones that are even just slightly above average at kind of conveying who they are and kind of getting that out, well, then that opens the floodgate.
Yes.
And a lot of it is what you were saying earlier about wanting permission.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't want to seem like I'm salesy, or I don't want to seem like I'm the center of attention. And it's like, well, just the virtue of you actually saying that means you're not.
Right.
You know, so can we take that as just like our launch pad and then build on that? And then the whole branding thing is consistency. Mm-hmm. It's like, so, okay, once we pan for gold and once we get that personality extraction, now what? Right. And now how do you either on your own, if you want to do that, because it's like I've done a million classes and stuff like that, where it's like, if you want to do this on your own and not pay somebody, mazel tov, knock yourself out. I'm here to tell you like the benefits of this. I'm not in the convincing business,
right?
You know, because then it's like, okay, now I run the risk of poisoning the well. Yeah. Where it's like, okay, you come in, I convince you to do a bunch of stuff. You don't like it. You don't like it. You're uncomfortable. It doesn't work. Da, 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 da. Now you go back and you tell 100 coworkers that I suck. What's the upside there? You know? So what I actually do is, like here at the studio, Monday was a perfect example. I had a bunch of gals coming in from all points over DFW, and we would sit down and do sort of like a mastermind or like a branding session as far as like, you know, what is your message, or more than anything, what is your style in reference to if you are talking about whatever it is that you're selling or whatever it is you're doing, what are your go-tos? What is your natural rhythm? What is your natural personality? And then let's emphasize that, because now we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you get in front of the camera. And just being able to get them to do that, then they become excited.
Absolutely.
And then almost like clockwork, I will get a follow-up either the next day or in that week, and they're like, oh my God. So one gal that came in, I'll say this and shut up. The one gal that came in, she sat down because she initially booked time to come actually in and pay. I'm like, look, dude, I don't want your money. As far as like, you know, like, yes, ultimately, yes, of course I do want your money. But right here, right now, I don't need you to pay me so I can go get
I'll
lunch.
help you make money, then you can pay me. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we sat down, and she she got on camera maybe for about 7 minutes at the end, but she completely decompressed.
Yeah.
And then she became herself. It's like all the air goes out, all the defenses go away, and then it fills back up with who you actually are.
Yeah.
You know? And then she came away excited, fired up. She came back a week later and had like 47 ideas. I mean, you talk about doing your homework. It was like, wow.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was like, I threw out a couple of ideas and you just, you know, like dove in, went all the way to the bottom. And I'm like, wow. And then once she actually knew how the sausage was made, she cranked it out.
Yeah.
So this gal's got enough content to last for 6 months.
So good.
But there again, she came in just wanting to want to.
Yeah.
You know, and that's really the key. And then I know you kind of have a similar mindset, and our Venn diagrams overlap in that. And so I'm glad now today we were recording everything. So let's see if we got, speaking of branding, it was just tearing the ass out of me that the AI clips were only 1080 when it zooms in. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, that nobody else noticed, but yes, yeah. No, yeah,
Thank you. Thank
as
you
the
for that.
creator, yes, nobody else had any idea, but yes.
So there you go. It never goes away. But thank you for that. Dude, we went like 40 minutes.
Dude, very cool.
Yeah.
Good stuff, dude.
And the logo will be done.
Ooh.
And next up is Leadership Laboratory. And so, like what Wayne said, if we ask you to be on, it's because
We have questions.
yeah, we got questions and you've got answers.
There you go.
All right, brother.
Appreciate it, dude.
Take us out.